Hey, my name is Neil,
And my name's David.
and we are not film critics. In this week's episode, we are going to be discussing about A Quiet Place Part 2. So, A Quiet Place Part 2, written by John Krasinski and directed by John Krasinski, starring Emily Blunt, Millicent Simmons, Noah Jupe, Cillian Murphy. So, David, first impressions?
Well, I don't think we can fully talk about Quiet Place Part 2 if we don't give at least a little bit of what A Quiet Place 1 is about. So I think I'm going to go into that now. So basically, A Quiet Place 1 was, well, basically it's about this family that, like, these monsters, they hunt by sound. Like these supernatural alien monsters hunt by sound. And if you make a sound in that world and a monster nearby, it will hunt you relentlessly and try to kill you, right? And like they're basically like one of the only families like in their area, and they haven't seen like anybody else for like, I don't know. It's, I think at the beginning of the movie it's like years. They haven't seen anyone in years, right? And the beginning of the movie starts with like their youngest getting killed, and they're all like, you know, very affected by that. And in my opinion, when I first saw this movie, I thought it was really, really good. I didn't see it in theaters. Apparently, I heard it was a very different experience in theaters than it was in like just watching it on my phone, because like the whole movie is about sound and silence, right? And so when you're in a crowded theater with people munching popcorn and sipping drinks and moving around and talking to their, you know, like a lot of that is like in the theater, I heard a lot of that is like taken away. Like everyone's just trying to be as silent as possible because they also feel like engaged and invested in the movie. And I thought, you know, that was something really cool. I heard that happened a lot in theaters. But for me personally, my personal experience watching this movie, I really liked it. I thought it was really good. It I wouldn't call it a bit short, but I feel like maybe they could have done a bit more with it. Which when they announced the sequel, I was excited. And yeah, it was a good movie. I really like John Krasinski in it. I really like that they cast a deaf actress to play a deaf girl, which was really a nice representation. And she was a great actress as well. Millicent Simmons, you brought her up before. She was a really great actress in the movie, and so was Emily Blunt. Everyone brought their A game for this, and it was a really good movie. Yeah.
Right, so I guess that's your feeling for A Quiet Place Part 1. So, what do you think of A Quiet Place Part 2?
So for A Quiet Place Part 2, I came to this movie with relatively high hopes. You know, I was thinking like, hey, you know, they're gonna expand on the world, they're gonna do more. You know, it's gonna be it's definitely gonna be more expansive, but it's not gonna be like ridiculous. I hope they don't make it ridiculous. And I think, while I think
Well, hold on. So, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I think that A Quiet Place 2, it is a successful sequel, but I don't know if it's better than the first. I think it does expand the world, it does build more on the characters, and it does give us some new and interesting set pieces with the monsters. But I feel like the themes here are weaker than they are in the first film. It's less emotional than the first film. And I feel like I still like at the end of the movie, at the end of the first movie, you have that feeling of being left wanting, and I had that feeling at the end of the second movie as well. And so, well, I feel like this movie also didn't capture that feeling of silence as well as the first movie did. That tension and like that fear with the like that scene, like the visceral fear of like being hunted by those monsters. Like in the first movie, that was really well done. In the second movie, I don't know as much. There was a few scenes that were like stand out. Like the opening of the movie, I loved. I loved every second of that. Amazing. The scene where it was that little boy, I can't remember his name. He gets his foot stuck in that bear trap and he's like yelling. Amazing, right? But then there's some times where I felt like they were kind of, you know, kind of just stringing things along to get to the next set piece, and I don't know if I like that as much.
Yeah, so, yeah, I guess with that being said, A Quiet Place Part 2, I guess I wanted more from the movie. Yeah, sure. They had character growth with Regan and Marcus, but I feel like I needed, I guess more background on, more specifically on the aliens, just so I could, I guess, understand more. Sure, they had different they had different, let's say, how would I say this, different, like, you learn more about the aliens, but I wanted to learn a whole lot more. The theme, yeah, I think the theme in the Quiet Place Part 2 is weaker than the first one. but I still think they did a great job with, I guess, the sound design, because a lot of the movie is about the design, the sound, right? Because me as well, I watched the part one in my phone and part two in my phone as well with headphones on, and so I hear every little technical sound designs, from the footsteps to the running and the monsters crackling and screaming. I thought that was great. That was very enjoyable to watch because you feel like you're a part of the movie, right? And but yeah, I'd agree with you saying that part one was a lot better than part two, just because I guess I wanted to watch the sequel, to have more, than what was given in the movie.
I mean, I wouldn't say part one is a lot better than part two. I'd still rank them like similarly in terms of like their overall. Like I don't really like to give number scores because I feel like it ties me down too much to a number. But like I feel like they are generally of similar quality. I just think they just do different things better. Like they just do different things. Like in Quiet Place One, they were like the themes and like the and what I really like the themes and the characters, right, and the family bonds. And the second one, it was more of the set pieces, the what is it, the more like the more what is it, the dual style of the narrative, the what is it, the still good acting from Millicent Simmons and the other people in the cast, and it was a different experience, but it was still very much a quiet place. And I think you can see John Krasinski, the director, trying to thread that line between should I do too much different, or should I do too little different? Because if you delivered a sequel that was basically a retread, then I feel like that wouldn't be as satisfying. And there's a place here where you could argue that A Quiet Place 2 does retread a lot of the Quiet Place 1, and I think that's sort of valid. I don't know how I 100% feel on that, but I feel like he's strayed enough from like the formula of, hey, you see a monster, they hide, they run, then eventually they escape, or the monster gets trapped or something. I feel like they deviate from that enough that it was still an enjoyable film to watch. I definitely wasn't entertained the entire way through.
No, yeah, there were like parts of the movie where I was, I didn't really want to watch because I was uninterested, right? But I liked how they ended off with like the ending. I really like the ending of A Quiet Place Part Two, because again, it shows character growth in Regan and Marcus, as them being characters, because they were able to, I guess, defeat the monsters themselves. And yeah, other than that, I think I don't have much issues with this movie, but I don't really love it as well. It's not like it's one of my favorite movies at all, but I also don't hate it. I really enjoyed the experience watching it with headphones, just because you hear the every little details of the sound, and it hits hard, it hits you more when after there's a scene when there's total silence, and then the sound just slowly gets into you, because there were this time when uh Regan, right, because I think she's deaf, if I'm mistaken, and she's wearing a what was that called, yeah, hearing aid, right? And then there were times where she wouldn't have her hearing aid, and then the sound for the entire scene would just be blank, and then you just see the act, the you just you wouldn't hear anything, but you just see what's happening. And then as soon as, let's say, it was in the beginning of the movie, so as towards the end, when John Krasinski's character and Cillian Murphy's character, when they get into the frame, the sound gets, it gets back on. I, I found that very, very interesting and enjoyable.
The movie definitely is very able to pull you into certain characters' perspectives, not only through like the use of the kind of like the quieting of like like everything in the movie whenever they turn to Millicent Simmons' perspectives or Regan's perspective, but also like the perspective of other characters, because sometimes it's hard to get the subjective perspective in like movies like this. because sometimes throughout like the horror, the themes of the characters can get lost. But it definitely doesn't happen in this movie. In this movie, it's definitely you can definitely feel like the influences of the characters, and it definitely does feel like a character-driven movie. It's definitely much like the first, like driven by the characters, driven by Emily Blunt and Melissa Simmons, and no one really feels like they're being here. No one here really feels like they're being driven by plot. You know, it feels like they're all like their own people. The only time I felt like the characters were serving plot instead of serving their own character arcs was when uh Regan and Killian Murphy they were like they at the like the pier thing, they were like trapped by those people that they didn't really explain them, and that's fine. You know, they don't have to explain everything in a movie. You know, I'm not one of those people that everything must be explained or it's bad. But I felt like I was really interested in um like in finding out what more the world was like after this this post apocalypse. We did see a bit of like a growing community with the island community, but I felt like it would have been more interesting to see one maybe underground, see one that's similar to the Abbott family, or maybe even for them to run into another family. So I felt like that would have been a really interesting dynamic for the families to kind of play off of each other. I thought that could have been interesting, but maybe he's saving it for a third one, and I don't know. I just at the end of each Quiet Place movie, I feel like I want more. And that's definitely a good thing, but sometimes it can also be a bit of an annoying thing.
Again, as you said, the movie feels like a very character driven movie. That's probably because throughout, I guess like the movie, Quiet Place Part Two. I feel like the overall theme is growth. You could see character growth in literally every single character, maybe outside from Emily Blunt's character. Cillian Murphy's character, Emmett, Marcus, and Regan. They were like, I guess, the three main stars of the movie, and throughout the movie, they progressively grow as character, and they don't serve the plot, but they do serve their own character arcs, and I think that's really good writing from John. He wrote it, right, but they are characters from, I think, I'm not mistaken, from Scott Beck and Brian Woods. But yeah, that's what I really like. I really, that's what made me stay and keep watching the movie.
Yeah, I definitely understand that.
You know what I don't like though? You know what I don't like? I don't like how they did the posters. Quiet Place Part One and Part Two. I didn't like how they did the posters. They made the posters seem like, as if it were like a total horror movie, but it isn't.
I don't know if this falls within the realm of film criticism, but I I don't really have a problem with posters per se because like pretty much nobody looks at posters anymore. Sorry, most people.
Wow.
Sorry,
Wow.
sorry, marketing school grads. It's unfortunate. Most people watch trailers, right? And I feel like the trailers for this movie they
Yeah,
capture
yeah,
what the
yeah, for
spirit
sure.
of it was. But I don't know if this is really relevant to the film, the discussion of the film, because it's great to view films in a vacuum. This could move on to a more interesting conversation about how much should you account for trailers when judging a film? Should you watch the trailers? Should you not watch the trailers? Should you watch a bit of the trailers? Should you have an idea of what it is going in? Should you not have an idea what it is? That whole conversation. But I don't know if this is the time or the place for that.
I don't know. This is just how I look at it, right? I search up the movie. I look at the poster. If I don't like the poster, I don't watch the trailer at all.
Really?
And yeah, that's just. Uh, Especially when it comes to horror movies, I don't like horror movies at all, bro. I try to dodge them as much as I can, but if I don't like how, I guess, the poster looks, then I'm reluctant on watching the trailer, because why would I want to waste my time on something that I don't even want to look at? If it was just a picture.
I don't know. That seems kind of like simplifying it, like the movie, down to a single image, and that's hard.
Yeah, I
And
know,
I'm not
but
going to judge a movie on a single image. Yeah.
yeah, but I think the poster made it seem more scary than it actually is, because the
Yeah.
movie. I wouldn't say the movie is a horror movie. It's just a thriller.
I heard that
You get
criticism. Yeah, I heard that criticism
Yes.
of the original movie like a lot, and also a bit of the second movie. That it's not really a horror movie. It's more like it's not even like barely a thriller. It's just kind of like a family drama with the kind of monsters just hanging out in the background, you know. And I feel like
Yeah.
for the first movie you could make that case, but I'm all for that because I'm all for like horror doing like experimental things within genre. But I think for the second movie, I don't think you can make that argument because just the amount of scenes that are just there just for the monsters. While in the first movie there wasn't really any scenes there just for the monsters to be scary. They were all driven by the characters and the plot, you know, and like what they had to do, and they were just kind of like walking obstacles rather than like an actual essential part of the movie. While in the second one, they were definitely essential. There was whole sections of like the movie, like and set pieces that were just dedicated to like, look at the monster, it's coming for you. Look how cool the monster, you know, and like it was all revolving around the monster, which maybe kind of made the movie less focused. I think overall, it made the movie less focused. Not this is a bad thing, but I feel like it focused maybe a bit too much on the monsters and not enough on the characters. Even though it does focus a lot on the characters, I feel like maybe it could have used maybe like a bit more polishing, you know, try to make sure that at the end of the day what you remember from the movie is wow, not wow, those monsters were super scary and cool, but instead, you know, wow, I was really emotionally affected by that story, which I think John Krasinski was trying to go for because he did that with the first film.
Yeah. With that being said, I think I mentioned it earlier. I think I wanted to see more about the monsters. You know, I guess I wanted more background on, how, what they are, and other than, their sound hunting monsters. But I mean, if I don't mind not having that, but I guess if they did have that, I think they'd have they'd have like a franchise set up. You know, I don't know if they want to do a franchise, but it wouldn't hurt because, like as you said, you want more, right? At the end of the movie, it feels like you're missing something, and I that's how I feel as well. And so I guess I want to see more. If there was a third movie of A Quiet Place, then I definitely watch it for sure.
I heard like the whole thing of trying to set up a franchise, which is most movies. They're trying to do that nowadays because they want like
Yeah.
guaranteed money makers at the box office every year. And
100%.
apparently, like what is it? The studio that made this didn't want a franchise. They like
Sorry, the
specifically
who?
the studio that one. I think it's
Oh, yeah?
Paramount. I'm not 100% sure though. They specifically avoided like script like pitches for the sequel that were like franchise focused. That were like, oh, we set up with this and we set up like, you know, we can make 8 movies out of this, and you know, like it'll become like the Saw movies or like the I don't or like Fast and the Furious where they make like 12 movies and there's 30 different characters and half of them aren't even from the original movie anymore. I think they specifically wanted to avoid that, which in this day and age where like I think that not that it's like not franchises are inherently bad. There are plenty of good, consistently good franchises. It's just that with every time you're forced to pull out a new idea, there's a higher chance that idea is going to be bad.
Yeah, 100%. I guess trying to set up a franchise early on, with 1, 2, 3 movies, I think you have to have like a very thorough plan. Because you don't want to what happened to Fast and Furious. Fast and Furious, you're just pulling out new characters out of nowhere, and the plots get ridiculous. But I don't want to talk about that. So,
Well, I think we've talked all we can about A Quiet Place Part 2. Do you have anything final thoughts, Neil, before we end off this episode?
no, we're good.
We're good? Okay. Well, that's the end of this episode of Not Film Critics. We'll see you next time, and we hope you enjoyed.
Special thanks to Nicholas Biancalin. Make sure to subscribe to his YouTube channel at TheNNote, or you could follow him on Instagram at nnote_music. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at not.film.critics and on Twitter at nonfilmcritics for exclusive content and news.
See ya!